Hey, good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. This podcast presented as always by our friends Exterior Home Solutions. If you need roofing, siding, windows, or a garage, contact Exterior Home Solutions today. They've been local and trusted since 1999. A big thanks to Exterior Home Solutions. Free estimate by calling the 865-524-5888 or visiting Exterior Home Solutions online, exteriorhomesolutions.com. We got a lot of questions to get into here on this Thursday edition of the Mailbag Podcast. Tennessee defensive questions, third Saturday in October. Maybe a Joe Milton question or two. We'll have to see. But right now, we got tons and tons of preview content for Tennessee and Alabama, tons of recruiting content, podcasts, videos, all that and more at Volquest.com. Brent Hubbs, where this week only, 50% off your first year annual subscription to Volquest.com.
Yep, it's a great time to check us out. Tons of great content, tons of great conversation. Obviously, a lot of heated debates going on right now, but Tennessee heads to Tuscaloosa for the third Saturday in October, and what is a big game and a big opportunity for Tennessee to do something they haven't done in a long time, and we're going to cover every angle of it that we can, as well as full basketball coverage, baseball coverage. We got it all going on at Volquest. It's not just for this week. We do this every week. We do it year-round, so you want to be sure and check us out. It's a great time to jump on board and join us for the next year because it's a great deal going right now.
With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the mailbag. We'll start with J Vols 95. What's with Wright's usage, Jaylen Wright? Why does he keep getting taken out of the red zone? He's been our best offensive skill player. Why aren't we getting him 20-plus touches in every competitive game, Austin Price?
Hubs is tapping, baby. And that's what Jaylen does. He runs them down inside the 20. And then a lot of times he's tapped out this year, Hubber. And, Dylan Sampson comes in and that's why he's got a few of those vulturing touchdowns that he has. But that's kind of the reason. It's not that Tennessee wants him to come out. It's that Jaylen takes himself out. You watch those, a lot of those drives. You go back and if you went back and watched the first handful of games and watched a lot of those drives, he would run them down in there and he would tap himself out. And then here comes Dylan Sampson in the game, who is the guy who spells either Jaylen or Jabari Small.
Yeah, I mean, Jaylen Wright tapped himself out early in the Texas A&M game down there. I mean, he was, 3 or 4 carries, 5 carries into the game. He had a couple of runs where he had drugged some people and everything else, and he tried to tap out of the game, and they left him.
He did. Stay out there.
Come on, dude.
My favorite was South Carolina, like the first drive. It was Squirrel White tapping, and Tennessee's like, who else is going to play? Stay in.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So that's the biggest thing. It's not we don't want him to score type deal or we're changing it up because we want different personnel out there. Now, there's a couple times they've wanted different personnel on the field, but it's ultimately Jaylen's, doesn't feel like he's at full tilt right there and asked to come out of the game.
Let's go to Doolittle Vol. This is an interesting question. Rob, would last year's Tennessee team win the conference this season?
It's an unanswerable question almost, but you got this defense with last year's offense. Who knows how things would go against Georgia, but man, I would like to see it with the way they're. That was, you're talking about a secondary that gave 290 yards a game last year. And pass rush was decent, but not what we're seeing right now. And the secondary legit. And I don't know, we're only halfway through the season. You can bend numbers, but they're giving up almost exactly 100 yards less per game through the air. That's pretty significant. So I don't know if they'd win the conference or not, but man, it would be. I think they'd go toe to toe with Georgia.
Yeah, I think with where the conference is this year, it feels like it's down. You don't have quarterback play. If Tennessee's got Hendon Hooker and they've got that team last year, and this team's in the conference setting right now, it's hard to believe that Tennessee. They're 5-1, and they're not very. They haven't been very dynamic on offense. So it's hard to sit here and say they wouldn't be 6-0, even if defensively they were where they were last year. What quarterback have they played other than Rattler? Would be a guy that just absolutely, kind of scares you to death right now. So, I think it's a different year in the league because of the quarterback play or lack of it across the conference.
Let's go to recruiting questions. Stackins 14 says, any update on Cameron Sparks after his visit this weekend? Also, do you guys have any idea when Jordan Seaton is planning on committing somewhere? And is our staff in contact with Terrion Grant 2025? So, Austin, let's start with Sparks, then go to Seaton, and then Terrion Grant.
Sparks, did not talk to Cam. We talked to him so much, that you just kind of let him bring like not that much changes from week to week. So you kind of got to have it spaced out a little bit. Tennessee's right there, Georgia's in play as well. But Cam Sparks has been up here so many times that Tennessee will be in the thick of that one till the end, if not the favorite. As for Jordan Seaton, as far as a commitment, I still think you're looking at December. I mean, he's going to take an official to Tennessee in November. Going to take an official to Ohio State in November. He's at Oregon this weekend. That one looks like November to me, or December to me, sorry. And then Terrion Grant to Tennessee is recruiting him, yes.
Let's go to Nashville 94. Brent, Josh Heupel will be in year number 4 next year, and it sounds like, unless Tennessee brings in numerous transfers, that's going to have some serious depth issues. Why is this the case? Year 3, and it seems like once a player goes down on the offensive line, at tight end, at wide receiver, Tennessee is in trouble. Is the recruiting board not big enough? Is it the NCAA cloud? Like, what's the issue there?
Hey, Hubbard, what was the common theme of all the positions he just named?
Offensive side of the ball.
Offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I think that their board needs to be bigger. I think from an offensive line standpoint, they've got bodies. Where's the development of those bodies that they have brought in the last couple of years? I think they're light in numbers at the receiver position. And I think they've been light at the tight end position since Josh Heupel's gotten here in terms of numbers. And every year he's been here, it's basically 2 tight ends, and you better hope they don't get anybody hurt. It's kind of been the feeling at the tight end spot. So I feel like they've always been playing catch up there. They've got bodies on the O-line. Where's the development of those bodies? Critical all season for those guys, and you're gonna have to do some work in the portal. And then the receiver spot, I don't think they've recruited enough people overall. When I look at the position now, they had numbers that they were dealing with. Okay, they had to manage numbers, and they were so depleted defensively that they had to really go heavy defense to build that roster back up. They've got to do some things on the offensive side of the ball. And again, part of it's the development in the offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the overall room, the offensive line has a ton of bodies, a ton of bodies, but it's just not, guys that are able to help them.
Not at this point. They haven't been able to. Now, they've had veteran guys in front of them, and we'll see where their development is with some of those guys. But, I mean, some of these guys have been in the program a couple of years. I mean, you're on the clock, so to speak. It's time for you to step up and be able to play, and we'll see where that's at. And we'll know what Tennessee thinks of some of those guys based on how aggressive they are in the portal and how many numbers they bring in the portal with where they think they are on the offensive line.
Let's shift gears here. Let's go to basketball, Rob. Got a couple here. How did Aaron Rowe's visit go?
I mean, largely positive. I mean, from everything I've heard, I mean, he's a 2025 guy. I mean, nobody ever has a bad visit, but it's super early in the process for him. He's taken a ton of visits. I mean, the only thing I would say about Tennessee is it's a good thing. It's a nice development for them to get him on campus this early in the process. I mean, he's a top 20, top 30, national prospect for next year, one of the top point guards in the class. He's from Leak Academy, and program where you plucked, a couple of guys out of the past couple of years, Cade Phillips, Cam Carr, that are freshmen right now. But good visit, and we'll be a dogfight. I wouldn't get too fired up about Aaron Rowe just yet.
This is from user handle ETSU Buck, who also equally loves the Vols. I like that handle. Another one. What is Tennessee getting out of Bishop Boswell?
A good, solid point guard. Not a super dynamic athlete, but a guy with a really high basketball IQ. He plays under control. Good head for the game. Has good size. I don't know that I would look for him to be a high impact guy early on in his career, but Tennessee is not going to need him to be. Assuming I think Zakai will be back as a 4-year player. So good, a very good, solid pickup, and a guy who's I think fits the culture of the program.
Any other recruits worth mentioning right now?
Not in 2024, no.
And then who is shining at practice right now?
Shining? I mean, shining's a strong word. I mean, I don't want to pump anybody up. I mean, usual suspects. I mean, you got 2 guys who are voted first team All SEC. I mean, Vescovi looks like he's shooting the eyes out. Zakai is not doing everything in practice right now, but I mean, when he is out there, he's not holding back. To me, I don't know that he is actually 100%, but he looks explosive. He looks quick. He does not look like he's babying himself or holding back and worried about being injured. So, I'm always looking at Zakai when I'm in the gym. Santiago looks great. And Freddie looks really good. I'm interested to see what his role is. I mean, especially, with Zakai early when they're holding him back, is Freddie a primary ball handler? How much is he, play on the point? But he's Freddie Dillon is going to be a guy that I'm going to be interested to see what he does.
Hey, Rob, last year you had Josiah, who kind of they had to kind of manage him because he was constantly kind of had the nagging injury. Where's he at health-wise as we head into the season this year?
I mean, he's fine, but as you mentioned, I mean, he's a guy that has always seemed to battle something. But right now, he's good. Right now, he's good. He's he has this really unique routine, stretching wise, that he's kind of developed with the strength and conditioning staff, with some people that have done yoga with him. So he's got a pretty elaborate routine that he has to use to unwind his body before he even kind of gets out there in the court. But Josiah pays a lot of attention to that, and as a result of the stuff he's battled throughout his career, the nagging injuries you mentioned, he really pays a lot of attention to trying to keep his body right.
All right, let's go to Nashville 615. Got a couple of questions here. We'll run through them. With Alabama having film on Golish and USF earlier this season, will that hurt the offense in a big way, or does it matter? Does Tennessee just need to focus on figuring out its own offensive problems and not worry about that at all, Brent?
Well, I mean, they played Josh Heupel for back-to-back years, so I don't think that studying Alex Golish gives them any kind of advantage or gives them any kind of leg up. I mean, they know, we saw the picture of when Nick Saban was on the Pat McAfee show 2 weeks ago. There was a Tennessee Power T notebook on his desk. They know all about Tennessee's offense. They've studied it in the offseason, the last 2 years. That there's nothing new that they're going to learn about Tennessee's offense because they played South Florida. And I don't think playing South Florida does anything to get them more ready to play Tennessee or less ready to play Tennessee. So I don't think it's a factor at all.
Where is Nico in his development, Austin? Is he similar to the situation with the coaches being infatuated with Joe's arm that they started him over Hendon Hooker? I don't get that last part. Just where's Nico in his development?
Well, what he's saying in the last part is, 2 years ago, Tennessee started Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker, and Hendon Hooker clearly was a guy who, once they got him on the field, was a really good quarterback, which prompted a lot of people to go, wait a minute, how did Joe Milton beat Hendon Hooker out 2 years ago to be the starting quarterback? Was that just because of Joe's physique and physical skill that had everybody enamored? I think is what he is driving at there, AP.
Yeah, I don't think you can compare the two from a standpoint of Nico's 18 and Hendon was 22 at that point, right? I mean, there's a big difference between 22 and 18. I get that Hendon only been here for a handful of months, but understanding how to work, understanding kind of how to approach the day, obviously knowledge, that type of stuff, experience, all that plays into account here. I think this boils down to Nico is coming along nicely. They really like Nico, but at the same time, they don't want to set him up to fail. You want to put him out there in a position to succeed. Brent, you talked about it at the complex yesterday. Tennessee pushed Josh Dobbs out there at Alabama, in 2015 or whatever it was, and he wasn't really ready there at the end of the game when they, just to get a couple of series. They started him the next week because he completed a couple of back shoulder throws and they lost 35-3, and so you just have to make the judgment call. Is someone ready? Is someone giving us the best chance to win over another player? I mean, Tennessee fans wanted Kamal Hadenbench, and I'll be the first to admit, I said at Florida that effort in tackling was bad. They should move in another direction. That's proved to be the wrong call. He's Tennessee's best corner. Tennessee fans wanted to move in a different direction at punter after the first week and first punt in the second game. And Jackson Ross is one of the best weapons they have right now. I'm not saying Joe's going to totally flip the script here, but obviously the coaches, to me, have, earned the leeway here in, if they believe that Joe gives them the best chance to win, or this is the best avenue for the overall team, you should give them that leeway.
Well, I think the concern that fans have out there with Joe right now, guys, is that it doesn't seem to be that he's turning in the right direction. Right? He's turned the football over more the last 2 weeks than he has at any point in his career. I think those are some of the things that are perplexing. What a coach has to decide is what AP was exactly what you said. Who gives you the best chance to win? Right now. And I know there's been a lot of talk all week long about different freshman quarterbacks in the past, and you started Dobbs and it didn't go well, and you started Peterman and it didn't go well. So there's two examples for people who say don't make a change, right? And then there's Eric Ainge for people who say, hey, play a freshman. And Eric was terrific right out of the gate his freshman year. And then everybody brings up Casey Clausen. That was a 2-3 football team when Casey Clausen got the starting job. That they had lost a heartbreaker to Florida on the Gaffney no catch. They lost an overtime when A.J. Suggs threw it 60-something times in the game at LSU, and they got manhandled against Georgia. They had lost back-to-back games and had no footing at that point. And so the change made the most sense there. Now, they didn't score 20 points in any of the next 3 games. They found a way to win it because they leaned on their defense until Clausen got going. This is a different scenario, Rob, where Tennessee's at right now, because you're at 5-1. But at the same time, too, if Joe doesn't play any better, you're not going to be 6-1. You're not going to be 7-1 or 6-2. I mean, he has to play better for Tennessee, and that's where the next couple of weeks are going to be really interesting to watch where they are, where this coaching staff is with the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing in a nutshell. Hubbard, they're 5-1, but I mean, me, you, my little kid next door, knows they're not getting great quarterback play. I mean, they just threw for 100 yards in an SEC game that they won, and the quarterback was not super accurate in throwing for 100 yards, and he's got an interception. And they played 3 SEC games. He got at least one interception in every one of them, and none of them were good. None of them were like, oh man, he just they just got him. They just. That could have happened to anybody. I mean, all the interceptions, except for maybe the underthrow to Jacob Warning at South Carolina was but everything else was a bad decision. So, I mean, they're 5-1 going to Alabama, but also it's I get it. I mean, I understand why fans are like, man, this is we're just sneaking by. Defense is playing great, running back, running game is fantastic, but then fans are like, quarterback play. It's legit.
Big props to Rob, man. I mean, Dylan and Jackson are away at school. He is mentoring young Phineas next door. He's got him out there, getting those leaves up.
Let's got 2 more here from Nash Falls 615. Let's roll through these really quick. AP made the comment like Kamal Haddon, Joe could turn it around. Joe's steadily gotten worse since the Virginia game. Is that injury affecting him? What's going on? Also, everybody's dealing with injuries and stuff at this point in the season. I don't think that's the reason he struggled in SEC play, correct?
I don't think so. I don't know what everybody else thinks. I just think his mechanics have been bad. I mean, he threw one Saturday that was like off his back foot and like 14 yards to the right.
And got away with it.
Yeah, I mean, I just think sometimes his mechanics get really lazy.
AP knocked me out of my chair when he threw that one, when he punched me.
Was it like when I punched you when Gerald Riggs went for 80 at the 2004 SEC championship game?
No, it wasn't that hard.
Gotcha.
Then the next one, ready to admit that not getting a transfer quarterback to compete with Joe was a bad idea. That was never, Brent, that was never the thing. Quarterback didn't want to come here.
Admit it? Are you ready to admit it, Hubbard?
Who were they going to get?
I mean, no one was going to come here.
Who was coming? I mean, who was coming? Listen, and I'm not picking on him. I mean, Nashville's been talking about this for a year, and look, their quarterback depth's not real good right now, right? You would like to have a non-freshman that you could look at and say, hey, if I need to go to him, I could go to him, and if my freshman quarterback's not ready. But who in December was going to come to play here? who in January was going to play. I mean, let's look at the January window in the transfer portal. Here's what happened. Tennessee welcomed the number one player in the country, according to rankings, at the quarterback position onto campus. And the quarterback who's starting right now just came off an Orange Bowl MVP performance where every national media talked about, well, hey, they're just plug and play at the quarterback position on this offense for next year. They're not going to basically miss a beat. I mean, I'm on the Joe Milton wagon. I'm driving that train. What quarterback was going to – I mean, do we think Sam Hartman was going to come play here from Wake Forest? You know, I mean, who was going to come play that you would say, hey, that guy is worthy of being here? There just wasn't that option out there for guys to come here.
And furthermore, how do the people on the board know that Tennessee didn't reach out to quarterbacks just to see if they could get some depth and had no takers?
Yeah, absolutely.
And with all due respect, that's not Gaston Moore on this roster. Just not going to happen. So I've seen some people ask about that. I mean, that's just that's not realistic in my opinion.
People see the spring game, man. Like again, you tell anybody over there, just I can't go there.
Jack Jancic is an All-American. He should play. I'll leave it at that.
Like, could he be a serviceable guy?
I think so. I do.
Here's the thing: could Gaston Moore win you a game in a one-off? Yes, I do think he could. Could he be a guy that you have to depend on for 5-6 games? I'm not sure that he's that type of guy. And everybody's going to go, well, what about Stetson Bennett? Okay. Exception, rule.
Yeah, Stetson's in a kind of a different area code right there. We got plenty more we'll get into on the second half of this Volquest podcast edition. But first, a quick word from Mark Packer and our friends, Exterior Home Solutions.
It's one of those phone calls that you hate to get from your kids. Hey, Dad, a tree fell on my house. Well, we got that call a couple of weeks back from our daughter at her house here, and the first call that I made was to Exterior Home Solutions. The peace of mind that they gave me and us as a family when they came out here and came up with a plan, got us connected with the right people, is absolutely priceless. Use the same people that I use. In that time of need, Exterior Home Solutions.
Big thanks, as always, to our friends, Exterior Home Solutions, for being the proud presenting sponsor of this Volquest podcast. We move on now to more of your questions. Let's go to Hendersonville Vol 15 and Hoodad Vol, both kind of similar questions, so we grouped them together here. What does the 2024 running back room look like? Which running back is more likely to be on the roster next season? Jabari Small or Jaylen Wright? Brent.
Jabari Small. Yeah, I mean, I think with the way Jaylen Wright's playing right now, I think Jaylen Wright sees himself moving on to trying to play at the next level next year. I think Jabari Small is the more likely of the two to return.
So that would be Jabari Small using his COVID year. You'd have Khalifa Keith, you'd have Cam Seldon, and you'd have Dylan Sampson, and then you'd have some of these freshmen moving in.
Yeah,
AP, you're not gonna throw your Jabari Small storyline in there?
Jabari Small, I put this on the board, actually on Wednesday morning when somebody asked a similar question. Jabari Small has got over 2,000 yards now for his career. The record's 3,078. So he's run for about 370 this year through 6 games. Let's say he gets another 370 in the next 7. He's going to be about 600 plus yards away from breaking Travis Henry's all-time rushing mark. Now, again, that's going to be 5 seasons. But still be a record.
Let's move on now to Hubs' favorite handle. I missed Denarius Moore. Can you talk about wide receiver development in this offense? How does it differ from previous coaching staffs and offensive systems? Is it just a different style, or is it a different trajectory? So wide receiver development for Josh Heupel and his staff.
Well, I mean, I think you feel pretty solid about what Chaz Nimrod's done when he's been thrown in here. I thought the moment wasn't too big for him last week. He's got to play more physical. I think that's something that he's learning. He's got to get guys' hands off of him because they're clearly not going to call pass interference very often. It doesn't feel like in this league anymore. So he's got to be more physical there. This offense is different in the sense that the receivers have a lot to read. There's a lot of route adjustment. It's not just, hey, you're running this route, this play. There's a lot of, this is your route tree that you're running this play. It's all based on what, the guy covering you does. It's based on where the safety is, where the window is, if it's zone. this, that, and the other. So, I mean, it's more complicated at the receiver position than I think a lot of people know. As more than I knew early on. So we'll see. I mean, they had part of the development deal is guys don't play till they absolutely have to play them, right? I mean, we didn't see Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod until the UTSA game where they made a conscious effort to get those guys some reps. I think for development purposes, you got to look at playing more guys. Now, right now, they don't have a ton of guys to play. So we'll see. I mean, I know this. He's probably asking this in part because of Dante Thornton. Dante Thornton's got to practice more to develop and to play. He's missed a ton of practice time going all the way back to the spring, and I think that certainly has hurt his development. He's got to catch the ball more naturally. The biggest surprise to me on this football team probably isn't Joe Milton struggles. It's probably Ramel Keaton struggles. That's probably the biggest surprise to me of anybody on this football team in a negative way, because I didn't see that coming from Keaton at all this fall.
Rob, let's go to you for this one. Randy G77, is tempo offense really effective if all you have to hang your hat on is the run game? I know it limits substitutions by the defense, but are those substitutions primarily aimed at defending the pass? I would say even if all you have is your run game, tempo offense effective, I'd say, yeah, in my opinion, it definitely is.
Yeah, I would say 100%. I mean, As long as you're stringing first downs together. Now, if you're going 3 and out, it doesn't matter if you're bad at running or bad at passing. But yeah, if you're putting together 8-9 play drives and running a play every 15 seconds, yes, I mean tempo works very much so in my opinion.
Yeah, and the tempo is designed to hurt the defensive line more than it is any other position on the football field. Yeah, it prevents you from getting some packages in there for pass rush situations, but you're trying to tax those guys, right? I mean, how many times have we heard Rodney Garner say, once the tank's empty, you can't replenish it during the game. So the more you get those guys on the field for sustained periods of time, playing at a high tempo, the more you wear those guys out. So, yeah, I mean, Rob's right, though. If you're not moving the sticks, tempo is very ineffective.
I do have a question on that this week. I think we can all agree, and I don't have the stats right in front of me. I don't know how many plays per minute they're running, but it looks slower this year. Going on the road for only the second time this season, Brent, Tennessee struggled. They slowed it down tempo-wise, wasn't what it was at Florida. Do you expect a slower tempo, or is it just all about not being penalized and getting that first down, something they couldn't do at Florida?
Yeah, I mean, you don't come off the sidelines into tempo. You got to get that first down to really get it going and really get going. And the problem they had at Florida was they didn't have a lot of back-to-back plays where there was not a stoppage in play, right?
No.
Balls out of bounds, takes longer to get lined up, penalty, passing complete, reset the ball, all those types of things have an effect. So I think they want to play fast. I think they wanted to play fast at Florida. I mean, look at the first drive at Florida, right? I mean, when the ball's moving and you're making first downs, I mean, you're sitting there at first driving games. They may boat race them tonight if this is what it's going to be. And then Tennessee just kind of offensively, because they made just a bunch of pre-snap penalties, had 10 penalties overall on offense, and they slowed the tempo down themselves by shooting themselves in the foot.
We got a couple here from Athrun. We'll start with the recruiting ones, Austin. Think Kai Bates makes it in before signing day?
We'll see. Right now, like he's hoping to make it in for the Georgia game. There are other teams that are recruiting him. This is not just a Tennessee or LSU. Is he going to flip? If he does, it's Tennessee. Like if he flips, it could be Florida State. It could be, one or two more. So, this is one you got to pay attention to. But we'll see if he makes it in. Right now, he's told me, both Matt and I, his plan is to make it here for the Georgia game. With some, kids flipping around and potentially leaving LSU's class, how much does that put pressure on LSU to up the ante to try to keep a Kai Bates? I think that's worth watching too.
Daniel Hill camp still divided, with UT being the likely common ground?
Man, that thing I think it depends on who's calling the shots. I think, Daniel Hill really likes South Carolina. I think the family really likes Alabama. I think they both really like Tennessee as a common ground. But if one side wins out, it's probably not going to be Tennessee. So, I think that he's going to be at Alabama this weekend. He's been to Alabama a lot. And while he may prefer South Carolina individually, you can't deny that, all the trips to Tuscaloosa kind of, stick out.
Let's go here to Rob. Vols win Saturday if Milroe does not scramble for how many yards? How many sacks and QB pressures does it need to be in the fourth quarter? Let's go with the first one. Milroe does not scramble for how many yards? How many does Tennessee need to keep him in check for Tennessee to win?
I don't know how you answer that. I would say, under 50. You just can't let him. I don't know what the number is, but he can't have a big game on his legs, and I don't know if it's necessarily, positive yards scrambling, but keeping plays alive while you're, I thought Willie Martinez did a good job about talking about the challenge. You got to keep playing coverage. When he starts scrambling, when he gets out, you got to keep playing coverage. So whether he's breaking off, big runs and picking up first downs, I think it's just his legs in general. Staying disciplined in your pass rush lanes, not letting him break contain. Because I think, personally, Jaden Daniels is great, but if you're just talking about a runner, I think Milroe's, maybe KJ Jefferson's good, but Milroe, when he gets out of the pocket, looks like a really good SEC tailback to me.
Well, he's going to have a lot of fun this weekend. That's what he said. So
here's the thing about the yards. It's when do the yards come? Are they hollow yards or are they meaningful yards? Okay. What I mean by that is if it's 3rd and 4, Tennessee's coverage is good, but they lose contain and he rushes for 5 yards. That's not a big gain, but it moves the sticks. If it's 3rd and 12 and he rushes for 6 yards, who cares, right? Because then it's 4th and 6. So it's not about the number. It's about the timeliness, the timing of them, and the critical moment. Does he make a play with his legs? That's the thing that you have to avoid if you're Tennessee.
Or if it's 3rd and 17 and he rushes for 25 yards. That's just, it's not good. And then kind of on that note, does Joe need to be more of a bruiser, Austin, in the run game? You saw some of that in the second half. At least it seemed to have him energized and focused. I know he went out through that interception, but if things are going badly, I feel like he needs to be running the football to kind of make up some of that loss of yardage.
Yeah, we've talked about it all week. I don't know if it's 5, it's 6, it's 10, whatever. Like design runs, putting your head down, getting the short yardage, and I'm gonna continue to I'm gonna beat the drum over here. Like if Tennessee's gonna pack it in tight against these good teams at the line of scrimmage, like Texas A&M or Georgia or Alabama this week, like why they don't do the tush push on the short, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. I'll never understand. You have a guy who's literally 6'5" and is a load, from a physicality standpoint, and I just don't get why you turn around and hand it off to anybody.
They did it once this year, and they haven't done it again, AP. They lined up in the full house, and you had Spraggins back there. I would rather have Spraggins at guard. That's just me. But you had an offensive lineman in the backfield, and he took his paws and shoved Milton forward for a touchdown. So why not do it again? I'm with you. Let's go to Sam Smith, 22-33. Tennessee hasn't faced a true runner like they're going to see at quarterback this weekend. Kind of talking about that a moment ago. How do you play Milroe so you can take that away and take away their deep shots? Rob, how would you play Milroe if you're Tennessee's defense?
I don't do anything a lot different personally. Than what they've been doing. Tennessee's been great against quarterbacks. Yeah, he's more mobile. He's more of a true runner than Spencer Rattler, who I guess is probably the most mobile guy they faced. But man, if you look at the last couple of weeks, Arkansas got after Milroe pretty well. Texas A&M really got after Milroe. So, if I'm Tennessee, the way they've been playing defense, the way they've been getting after the passer, I don't, change a lot this week. And especially, I look at what Arkansas and Texas A&M did. There's some speculation out there that Milroe's not 100%. Maybe he's a little gimpy. I don't know if that's true or not, but his stats as a runner have been going steadily downhill, and he's not shaking loose much at all these past couple weeks.
The other half of this question, and we asked this on the Rocky Top Roundtable yesterday, so Austin, this is just for me and you because he says, take Joe out of the equation. Somebody's got to step up. Who's going to be that guy? You and I both said Joe. I'm going to go. Easy answer would be Jaylen Wright. Somebody on that offense is going to have to step up and make some plays. Give me Ramel Keaton, a guy that has no confidence right now. Get him going early. Feed him the football a little bit in that first quarter. and make some plays or two, or at least make the plays that you're capable of making, right? You would love it for it to be Ramel Keaton. I'll go wide receiver, a spot in the offense that needs to get going for Tennessee. I'll say a veteran Ramel Keaton. Who would you say?
Squirrel White. I'm going to go Squirrel White. I think that, he's the guy that can kind of, get loose. He's the guy that can stretch the field. You go back to that Orange Bowl, obviously the nice touchdown catch, but he also hit that deep ball that, set up another one. I'm going to go with Squirrel White.
And that's a guy that they target right out of the gate a lot. Think back to that South Carolina game and some other games this season.
Florida game.
Yeah, Florida game as well. That's a good one. That's probably a more accurate answer would be Squirrel White. Last one, 2 questions from Gulf Coast Vol. They kind of run together. We'll break it up. 2 questions. We'll ask them separately. Here we go. The Knoxville media seemed high on Joe and the receivers coming into the season. How was everyone off, Brent Hubbs?
Joey Halsley said 2 weeks ago that Joe Milton was playing at an elite level right now. It's coming from what you hear inside the building, and everybody loved the way Joe went about his business, the way he worked in the off season. Everybody talked about how pretty and you could see it, how good looking of a guy Dante Thornton was. So you just had a guy who was of similar size and similar speed, just win the Biletnikoff Award seemingly out of nowhere, and Jalen Hyatt. So you thought, okay, you put in that body type at the slot spot, and Dante Thornton's got a chance to put up big numbers. I'm sure we all got spoiled by what they did a year ago, but a lot of it's coming from what the narrative that was put out, from people in the building, is how well. What would we hear in fall camp? Joe Milton hadn't thrown an interception, and he's operating at an elite level, and he's making all the right decisions and all those types of things. It has not translated. I still think he's a good practice player. You talk to everybody over there. I think he practices really well and does things. It's got to translate onto the field better than what it did. Again, I said it earlier. No one saw Ramel Keaton's struggles coming. Based on what he did last year, the work ethic that guy has, nobody saw him dropping open touchdown passes. I don't know how you're supposed to predict that one. I certainly didn't see that one coming. So, yeah, Ramel Keaton fooled me. He totally fooled me at the receiver spot.
And then kind of on that note, the second part of that question, again, kind of runs together. Austin, how did the receivers look so well coached and talented last year, but this year they look like they can't get anything to go right? Drops, running incorrect routes, not getting open, not running through the catch, so on and so forth. That's a really good question. Again, a lot of drops this year. Classic example of not finishing your route was Keaton the other day against A&M. We've heard a little bit earlier in the season about maybe the receivers aren't helping the quarterback out in terms of the route being running. And then something you pointed out as well, just guys not getting open like you saw last year. And I hear you. Hyatt's a different breed, okay? Hyatt's not here. Cedric Tillman's no longer here. Brew McCoy's hurt now. That has something to do with it, but it seems like it's kind of been a 180 a little bit.
I think you answered your question to a degree by just naming all the guys that aren't here or out. Brew was having a really solid year, I thought, until he got hurt. What do you have with maybe the one drop? It wasn't like staggering. He was fine. He was exactly kind of what he was a year ago. Ramel's still kind of the outlier. And I think it's just a confidence thing. Some kids, don't carry a ton of confidence. And when things go one way, it's kind of hard for them to pull themselves up. And I think that's kind of where we're at with Ramel. I think he's kind of down on himself. And again, I think that's translating to his inability to, catch the football and make plays.
I think the other thing too is how what we did not, Rob, appreciate. And I know we're about out of time here, but what we probably did not appreciate with Hendon Hooker a year ago is just how quickly he made a decision, how quick he processed his reads to make a decision, and balls out of the hands. And as a receiver, that probably helps you. It's like, there's a couple of times I thought Joe was late with the ball on Saturday. And I think how fast Hendon Hooker operated once the ball was snapped to him in the passing game, I didn't appreciate nearly as much as I should have a year ago.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point. We'll get Eric to do this. We need to look up yards after catch last year compared to this year for first. I mean, just to pile on to your point, just about how Hendon got rid of it quicker, and I think got it to guys, where they could, were in a position to do something with it after the catch in a hurry. Whereas I think a lot of times with Joe, that he's holding it, it's late, and defenders are there. And I don't have the number with that, but I would be interested to see. I bet the yak was significantly better last year.
Tennessee and Alabama, the third Saturday in October. That's just days away. We've got complete preview coverage over at Volquest.com podcast. We've got video podcasts. We've got matchup piece. We've got Rocky Top Roundtable. We got the first glance. I mean, we got tons and tons of stuff, plus tons of recruiting coverage over at Volquest.com as well. It is the standard for Tennessee athletics coverage, Tennessee football recruiting and news. And right now, 50% off your first year annual subscription. That's at Volquest.com, this big game sale. This week only, 50% off your first year annual subscription. That is at Volquest.com. Take advantage of this awesome, awesome deal. And as always, a big thanks to Exterior Home Solutions for making this coverage possible. Exterior Home Solutions, East Tennessee's first choice in roofing. Use your trusted and local source for exterior home renovations. You can get a free estimate at 865-524-5888 or visit them online at exteriorhomesolutions.com. For Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, I am Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for being here on a Volquest Mailbag Podcast.